it's Roger, thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time again, and I'm going to have a go at this Spring Dreamer pollen, which is my, well, not my largest nobly type, but certainly getting close, and each year it seems to produce bigger and stronger canes. That may stop now. I know some people disagree with repotting while something's in bloom, but I've never found that a problem. What I have found a problem is not catching the new roots at the right time. You often get disturbance and damage on your existing set of roots. So if you haven't got new roots coming, what's left? Is some damaged and not so good roots. And they've got to stay like that till some new roots eventually come. So I think it's far more important to take advantage of a flush of new roots and get those down in some fresh media. And then if some of the older roots are a bit damaged or need trimming off because they're dead, you haven't lost your root system completely. You've only interrupted it, which is not as bad as, completely losing it. This particular plant needs a lot of decisions on it, so I thought it might be a useful one to film. You may not agree with all the decisions, but I'll explain them as I go along, as I usually do. It's called rabbiting, but first job, stake and ties off. Probably means it's going to flop and fall over. Highly likely. It's very top heavy. That's just the nature of these plants. That's how they grow. Yeah, there's quite a few decisions to make on this. The more I look at it, the more there is, quite honestly. Quite a few clips on here doing absolutely nothing at the moment. They obviously did once, but they're not anymore. What else have we got then? Let's let go of these two big canes. This is the point it probably will fall over if it's going to. Right, that should enable me to get the cane out. Oh, I think that was grown into the roots, that one. Right, out of the pot. I don't think we've got any more canes or ties. Nope. I've got to be careful with this because yes, I've got new roots, but I've also got a new growth. Just dipped a leaf in my coffee, that probably won't do it any good. This is hanging on. Oh, I see why. That's a nuisance, but there's not a lot you can do. Let's see if I can get that on camera. All of those roots are not only through the bottom of the pot, quite a few of them are attached, and some of them have gone round the corner and back up into another hole, so they're stopping it coming out of the pot, and by hook or by crook they need to let go, and if that means snapping a couple, in this case it's not the end of the world, simply because this has a very branching nature to its root system. So a damaged root tip, in theory, should still branch. I'll show you why I'm trying to be ultra careful once it decides to let go of the pot. Oh, this is the first one I've had like this gotcha, for a long time. Yeah, I did hear some roots crunch. Right, why I've got to be ultra careful is that new growth down in there. Yeah, because it's coming up in the middle of the plant, so the other two new growths are down around the outside, so they're okay, and they're also quite large already, whereas that one is new and delicate. I don't want to lose it. I've only got 3 at the moment. I'm happy with 3. I prefer 4 or 5, but you go with what you get. Now, as far as the root system is concerned, the pot's full of algae. Nature of the beast, unfortunately, if you use clear pots. You might try this in a clay pot, but what it's going in is the minor decision at the moment. It's how much of it is going in is the decision-making process. I want to get some of the old media out now because it just makes handling the plant a bit easier, as I've got cutting to do. Talking of cutting, let's get my scissors out to dry off. As I've said before, it's soaking your scissors in alcohol, strictly speaking, is only half the job. It's the rapid evaporation of the air drying when you take them out of the alcohol that really does the serious cleansing. so I'm told. Difficult to prove it, one way or the other. Well, I've got a good root system, there's no doubt about that, so even though there's going to be some damage, I'm less worried about it now. You know, if I damage a third of these roots, that still leaves 2/3 of a pot full of good roots to get into something else. This media isn't that bad. Still smells, it's difficult to describe it. There's a difference. There's an earthy smell that is a natural smell, and it's okay. And then there comes a point where that smell turns into more of a Fausty smell with a hint of mushroom. That's the point it's going, basically. And that's the point where it doesn't need to be left in there any longer than necessary. And once it starts really smelling the mushrooms when you water it, that becomes an emergency repot in my book. That's a now thing. Stop what you're doing and get on with it, because it'll only get worse. Now this is where all my new root system is. So that's the bit where we don't need to go too mad. Yeah, they're all in around the base of the plant and around the outside. Right, now the decision making process. I don't know how much of this I can get on camera. Looking at that side of the plant, it's obvious to me where the strength of this plant is. It's in that cane, that's a last year's growth. It's definitely in that cane, look at the size of it, yeah? Possibly a little bit in there. It's got 2 new growths and another one coming up the back. So this is where the strength of the plant is. Let's have a look and see if we can spot the older, tireder part, some of which can come off. That's serving no purpose at all. It's bloomed and it's small. This one is a bit of a decision because it's actually still got a couple of leaves, but when that growth was produced, it was not a good one. Unfortunately, at the base of it is a new growth. So it's got to stay. If I cut that, the new growth goes, and then I've lost one. That has bloomed over its entire length. Oh, I missed a clip. As has that. So those two can go. And there's a couple of canes. These were cut when I got the plant. So somebody else did that. Well, they're no use, are they? Still got a decision to make on. If those two go, do you know, I might separate that new growth that's basically in the wrong place. It's just wrong place, wrong time. And it has one cane attached to it. Actually, it's got 2 older canes, one with 2 leaves attached to it. I think I may start a new plant. Now, that was a decision I didn't expect to make, but I think I will. It's in the way where it is, and quite honestly, it's hanging off. It's not long for this world, it's only just attached. In fact, I don't think it is. I got a feeling that is only in there because of roots holding it in there. Now I'm beginning to wonder whether this was actually a separate plant last time I potted it, but it is a separate piece. Are you going to come off nicely? There's another leaf in my coffee again. Yes, you are. That is a separate plant. Good. So that's a new plant to start for somebody else, perhaps. The thing is, I've already got a second plant of Spring Dream of Pollen that was a Kiki that Rachel gave me. So, you know, I already have another one in a pot coming on. Come out, you little tyke. Yeah, that's a self-contained plant in its own right. And given the style of the plant, when the new growths are 6 to 8 inches long with some open leaves, the new roots come. So the new roots are 2 or 3 weeks away on that one. And there are some papery roots and some viable ones, so there's enough to keep that hydrated until it gets going. So that's a separate little plant to deal with. That can go in a nice little pot and come on behind. Now I'm in a much better position to decide where this plant needs a break point, and I think I can see it already. There's one cane that's in an awkward position. Old, shriveled, useless, old, shriveled, old, shriveled, old, shriveled. So there's the break point. It's reasonably obvious to me. It's there. Now that leaves that cane on that has bloomed a fair bit of its length. It might push out a few near the base, but it's leaved. It's got strength in it still. There's no leaves on any of that part of the plant, and highly unlikely it's going to produce new growths from any part of that plant. It's the older, tireder part of the plant, so it's coming off. This will be fun. This will be a big cut. Bend me scissors. No pretty colours in the rhizome. We like that. We like that a lot. To tell you the truth, I can't remember ever getting the dreaded F in a dendrobium. I don't mean to say I haven't got it lurking in one or two of them somewhere, but I don't remember it. Now the problem I've got is this one cane. It has a single leaf on it, it's bloomed its entire length, but it's in the middle of the plant. If I try and take that off, I'll damage the rhizome, and probably it'll end up falling into two parts. So that one gets to stay this time. So that's where the strength of the plant is, in its two new growths that can be encouraged to grow up the outside of the plant, in the leaved canes, some of which haven't if you look at this leafed cane in the middle, it's bloomed here, it hasn't bloomed down here yet, it probably will next year, and even though that'll only be a couple of sets of blooms, blooms are blooms, we'll have them. So that's what's left, that's what needs potting up, and that's going to be fun because that's a hell of a root system, and I need that in a small pot. These things like to be cosy. So there may be a haircut due on this one, on the older part of the plant. Let's have a look and see where most of these older roots are. Something's got to go or it won't go in the pot, and I'd rather take off older roots than anything near the front of the plant where the new roots are coming out from. So I think we can trim here. Haircut. I've got a feeling there's a chunk of rhizome can come off there, and that may well take out quite a few roots. Yes, it has. It's taken out the centre section, which is where nearly all the old dead roots are. So one snip, job done. Still going to need a haircut. Still going to need these shortening. Don't want them all. There's just too many to get in a new pot. So again, we'll go into the centre of the plant and take those out. It's the trouble when you've got a tangle like this, half the time you snip your roots off and they don't fall. So you end up leaving them there. So you need to watch what you're up to. There's no new root tips down here, nothing. These are all active roots, they're viable, they're not actively growing. Whoops, there's a lovely little new one there, we'll leave him. And there too. Watch your step. Right in amongst all this tired stuff, there's an odd one with a green tip. Well, it's better if they stay. They're actively growing. You can come off. Big long one. How are we doing? I think we're sort of there now. There's an old tired one. And there, and there. What about you? Going round in circles, that one. Look at the length of that. It's actually got a growing tip on it as well. Oh well, gets to stay then. I'll just wrap it round when I put it in the pot. I think that will probably do now. And so I'm just, at the moment there's a few that I've cut that didn't fall out, so I'm just trying to make sure they're not left in there. They're obviously not going to live. I think that'll do. That's not a bad root system. It's going to need strapping, but the only bits that are going to get strapped are the older canes. They don't need to be strapped tight, they need to be strapped quite loose with the new growths on the outside of the plant, so they'll push up outside. And well, if they're anything like this one that grew last year, if they're going to grow to that size, they've got plenty of time to grow that size. We're in May at the moment, and they're already that big. They started quite early in the year, so they're going to really take advantage of the full growing season. They should be good sized canes. Yep, that'll do nicely. I'll give that a bit of a clean up. Now, another thing, this works with some dendrobiums, not with all dendrobiums. I'm not going to do it because I don't need all the plants that it will produce. But if that part of the plant was laid down in a tray with some damp sphagnum moss, not over the top of the cane needs to just be touching it, you are highly likely to get new little plants growing out from the leaf joints. And with a piece like that that's still got, I wouldn't say they're viable roots, they're all papery, nonetheless they might be able to get a bit of hydration in there. You could rejuvenate that and actually produce perhaps a dozen or more little plants from the leaf, from the nodes on the canes. New little plants will grow. They are true kikis in actual fact, but they can be induced by just laying the canes on some damp sphagnum. You've got to watch out for mould and rots when you do it, because obviously the canes are going to be staying wet. And I personally would suggest that if you're going to do it, every single old sheath is taken off, because that's the bit that's most likely to rot. Yeah, so clean them up really well, get all the old dead bloom spikes off, everything apart from the cane, and just leave the bare greenish cane. It does work. I've seen it work. I have no plans on doing it because I don't want a dozen spring dreamer pollens that are 2 inches high to bring on. I've got enough room, and I certainly haven't got the time or the patience. So I'll have a clean up and we'll come back and find a suitable pot. Okay, we'll get the little one done first. This pot's a little large for the root system, but once it goes in here I don't want it to have to come out for some considerable time, so room for the roots to expand. The hope is that it will stand up on its own, but that's a wait and see. There's large bark in the bottom of the pot, that's cropping. So it's not a highly active root system, so I don't want the bottom of the pot staying soggy. What don't we want? Soggy bottoms. You're just asking for trouble basically. If you get a layer in the pot that never seems to want to dry out and there's no roots in there to use up the moisture, it's just going to rot the roots. It's just inevitable. So try to avoid soggy bottoms basically. Now, I don't know whether this one is going to stand on its own. We'll do what we can. I don't want the base of the plant actually buried, I want the base of the plant sat on the media, which inevitably leads to a problem, because obviously that's one of the places that it's very easy to secure by tightly packing the media around it. But I've certainly found with an awful lot of dendrobiums, if the base of the plant is buried, it's highly likely to, it's wobbling like anything. So I'm going to put that to one side for a minute because it's going to need a stake. Let's go and see if I can find one quickly. Alright, so the idea is to get a stake in reasonably tight and then strap the 2 oldest canes to it. But it's very difficult to get a stake to stay up in an air cone pot. Ugh. Should do it. A bit of a disaster. My raffia reel is coming to a close. It's a bit of a nuisance. Oh well, good old eBay to the rescue again. I don't want to take this tie too high. Yeah, I think that should hold. The stake, the plant seems to be moving, but the stake doesn't, so it's probably going to do its job. Hopefully some new roots will follow soon. Oh, that's not bad now, that's one done. Now the big one, this will be fun. I'm not going to bother crocking this pot. It is an air cone pot and I have got a very large root system. so it's going to be down in the bottom of the pot even as I pot it. Now, what are the chances of this one standing up on its own? Actually an awful lot better, because there are so many roots. But where's my new growths? Where's my oldest part? Oldest part to the back. This will be fun, trying to get all these in. But I'd like it tight in its pot. One, that'll help it stand up, and two, dendrobiums just like it that way. So everything's in. Now, as usual, if I want to squash a part of the plant to the back of the pot, that's where I put the media in first. That way I can push the plant against what's already there, rather than try and get it in later. And I'm trying to get as much into that. There's a vacant space in the centre here where the older roots came out. And while I can see it, now's the time to get the media into that place. Otherwise I'll have a hollow. And then any new roots that go down into that won't serve any purpose as far as securing the plant in place is concerned, because there'll be nothing to get hold of. Right, so that's media down the back side of the plant. Yeah, I think at best I'm going to have to tie the older canes together because they're wobbling around and flailing around to the outside of the pot, which means with their weight they will just pull on the plant, trying to pull it over, and then it won't stand up. Quite a tight one, this. Some plants I pot quite loosely. Dendrobiums I pack in there, especially when I've got a good root system like this. It will help stabilise the plant. And all the new roots, as they burrow into the crevices, will help hold the plant nice and tight. The only place I'm not pushing tight is where the actual new roots are, which is at the base of the centre at the moment. So that are good. And again, I don't want the media around the base of the plant. These new roots that are coming out, they can have a little gap, just so that they've got a little bit of room to move before they push down into the media. And that is lovely and secure, but I still want to strap the centre of the plant. I should have really done it before I put it in the pot, but can't remember everything all the time. Quite honestly, I'm standing here gritting my teeth because my back is killing me. But it hurts an awful lot less standing up than it does moving between standing up and sitting down, shall we say. That's the bit it doesn't like. Right, I've got a central cane here, so I'm going to tie loosely to that and then use that as my anchor point because it's in the centre of the plant, so I'll pull the others in towards it. This doesn't need to be tight, obviously. All it's doing is forming an anchor. Just loosely tied, and then it's this giant thing over here that I want strapped, really, because that's the one that's going to wobble the plant. So we need to go around that one. What else? If I go around those two as well and pull those in towards the centre, that will probably do. Yeah, that'll do. It's just to stop it waggling around, because obviously every time I pick this up to water it, there's more weight out of the pot than there is in. So it's just going to wobble, and this will help just stop it waggling around quite so much. Right, how are we doing on the wobble front? That's not bad. It's the plant that's wobbling rather than the base of the plant in the pot. That's the bit I don't want wobbling. But I'm still going to push it down harder. I can still get more media in down there. Oops, piece of wood, we don't want that in there. Probably wouldn't hurt, but as I can see it, I'd rather it didn't go down in. Right. Itchy nose. That's all you need when you've got dirty hands, isn't it? There's a bad guess with the media. that'll do. So base of the plant just above the media, not wobbling. Could probably take a stake as well, you know. Is it worth it? Will it do any good? I think it will. See if I can find one of my big stakes. Alright, let's see if we can get this to stand up a little better. Somewhere about there. I only want to strap one cane because it's not bad. You could just do with a little bit of extra support. Get down in there. Right. Should hold it. Should stop it wobbling a bit better. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, that's better. Good stuff. Right, flipping good watering now for both of those pots, and new labels, and back in the grow room. The old label for this I'm not using, one because it was yellow and it's not one of my shiny nice new white ones, and two, it didn't actually say Spring Dreamer pollen, it just said Nobly Hybrid, on the grounds that the larger plant was no ID when I got it. But since Rachel sent me a genuine Spring Dreamer pollen Kiki, which then bloomed, I could double check the identity, and the blooms are identical, every little detail, so I'm confident that is Spring Dreamer pollen. It is one of the mass produced ones, and at the time I got it, it did come from the sort of place out of the mass production sort of system in Europe. So confident that that is Spring Dreamer pollen. So good soaking and back in the grow room with a new label. Thanks for watching, see you next time.